Hello and welcome to another Tech People Code video. And this time we are talking about coaching. What is coaching? What does it mean? And how can you leverage it for your tech teams? Coaching has had a lot of buzz over the last years, right? We see the terminology everywhere. Coaching, I'm a coach, I'm a life coach, I'm a this coach, I'm an agile coach, and so forth. And indeed, when I look at job postings, what I see popping up a lot, at least in Europe and specifically in Germany, is the agile coach. The agile coach is getting more prominence over the last years, at least, alongside the scrum master, obviously, part of sort of the standard Scrum setup, who helps the team, who supports the team, who removes impediments, if you will. However, there are many more layers to coaching than just, let's say, strictly agile coaching. And I would like to delve into that. What does it mean? And what are the different forms of coaching that you can leverage for the team? What we also see is that there are many folks in roles that are close to what sort of a traditional coach would do or a full-time coach would do. For example, engineering managers, also the aforementioned Scrum Master. There are people leads like me who have a very, very strong focus on coaching their teams and individuals. And then there are others roles in the company. There are, for example, coaches for product owners specifically. There are coaches for even the Scrum Masters so that they can get coaching. There are coaches who only operate on a functional level. So coaches who very much focus on enabling the functional technical progress of individuals and teams. Who also wear a coach hat. So there are many layers, there are many manifestations of coaching in technical organizations all around us. There is no one standard way that works for everybody. What there is, however, is a good way to understand what coaching actually does or is supposed to do and how it can help and enable and empower teams and individuals. To break it down, what is coaching? According to an international coaching association, it means partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And this is essentially what it's all about. It's a very partner-driven process. It's all about what the client in that scenario wants and needs. And it's about thought-provoking creative processes, impulses that the coach can give to the coachee. It's about inspiration. Unlike therapy, where the focus is very much on enabling a person to be in a situation again where they can sort of self-manage really well again, coaching inherently has the belief that the person who is being coached brings all of the resources, all of the abilities, all of the strengths that they need to start change processes within themselves or within their system. And thus it inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. So essentially, coaches are not therapists, and we're not aiming to be therapists. We cannot do what therapists do. Therapists are a needed element in enabling folks, but they just have a different concept and a different approach. And obviously, they're also trained, and oftentimes therapists are trained and oftentimes also clinically trained, which coaches are not. That does not mean, when we look sort of towards the other side of things, it does not mean that coaches cannot support in situations of crisis or situations of stress. On the contrary, this is where coaching comes in. But it is very important that we make sure as coaches that the person or the team, that the team members are of sound mind and that they are in the situation to be coached. If they aren't, then this goes beyond our capabilities and our responsibilities, and we would send that person to a specific therapist or to someone else who has the ability and the training to help and support them. When we look around in tech, what we see mostly is agile coaching. Agile coaching has also obviously become a buzzword, but this is the form of coaching that we see mostly implemented in engineering departments with technical teams. And it's the methodology that helps teams to become self-sufficient, productive, and innovative. Agile coaches often coach teams as a whole, but they also coach individuals. Oftentimes, they are very close to the product owner, whether the product owner is integrated into the team or not, and they enable folks there and help them to implement the agile change, if you will, on a good level. Traditional coaching, however, is a little bit more focused on individuals, and it helps them unearth and activate resources that they can then leverage to enable personal progression, tackle challenges, master hurdles, and get to those wins, be they personal or professional. Coaches also help in situations of crisis. We support where people might want to implement changes in life areas, and so forth. So it has a little bit, at least historically, it has a little bit of a different scope in comparison to adult coaching. I am not saying that one is superior to the other. What I'm saying is that organizations need to carefully think about which kind of coaching would help and support the individuals and teams in which scenario. Sometimes agile coaching is the absolute best methodology. In other scenarios, systemic coaching would be more appropriate. And oftentimes, and this is also something that should be noted, those two overlap they overlap in a great deal. The 4 coaching principles or coaching areas that you will most likely see when you look into coaching are goal, system, life story, and conflict. The most known of those 4 is systems or systemic coaching. And the whole principle of systemic coaching is basically that we see a coachee being embedded in various systems. So you have a sort of a private environment, you have a professional environment, you have your own belief system. So you are embedded into various systems in your life. And we should not underestimate the impact that those systems have on the coachee and how the coachee is moving within those systems, or what the range is that the coachee has in these systems. So we do not coach in systemic coaching on, let's say, individualized coaching, in the sense that there is the coachee and we only look towards what their sort of their area is, but we look around and we see how does this interplay with the various systems that the coachee is in. There's also coaching for goals, which most or all of the coaching formats will leverage at one point or the other. Most likely at the very beginning of the coaching. So whenever a coachee comes to me and wants to be coached, the first thing that I want to know is, what is their aim? What is their goal? Where do they want to go? And goal setting essentially sets the foundation in the coaching for what the next steps should be, what should be worked towards, and it gives both coach and coachee a good understanding of the actual topic, of the actual challenge. It's not about, let's say, just having something to work with that, but it actually makes a lot of sense to have that end line in sight, to know that, yeah, this is the marker that tells me I have reached my goal, I have checked in, I'm happy, I can exit the coaching, and I achieved what I wanted to achieve. Or alternatively, to see, no, we are not there yet, you are not there yet, and how can we support you to make that happen? Then there's also the principle of life story coaching, which essentially takes a look back into the coachee's life history and looks at how situations were handled in the past, how the coachee activated resources in the past, how they dealt with scenarios, and to then derive from that a set of tools that could enable and support the coachee going forward. Because the future is uncertain, but what we do know is our past and how we dealt with that, and the learnings that we had from that, either implementing something differently, doing something differently, or making sure that we understand what has helped us then and how it can help us now. And then there is the principle of conflict coaching, and mostly this is known as mediation, because mediation essentially is coaching folks on conflict. Oftentimes we think about mediation as having looking at at least two parties or several parties, but it does not always have to be the case. Specifically, conflict coaching deals a lot with inner conflicts. So you have two sides that are warring inside of you, and it helps to make you realize how you can address or solve the conflict internally with yourself. But then going beyond that, conflict coaching also obviously looks into how to address, how to approach conflicts that you have with others, all of the parties that are involved there. And this happens a lot in a team setting. This is something that definitely also comes up in one-on-one settings as a discussion point. Sometimes the conflict coaching part that's not linked to mediation is just talking through a conflict, mirroring with a coach on what the past steps were, what the next steps could be, how to address the conflict, how to approach the conflict with another party. So that's sort of the isolated coaching that can be done in a conflict situation. But ideally, obviously, when we look at conflict, we would like to have a situation, or I would like to create a situation where the coach can then also address the conflict with the other party or other parties. And that is what mediation essentially does. If you are interested in mediation, if you want to understand what mediation is and how it can support in technical teams, then don't hesitate to check out my video on the topic. I have posted the link for you in the description below. Now, when we look at coaching, you can coach either individually or you can coach a team. And one or the other isn't better. It's just a matter of what is most applicable in a given scenario. Most often you will find that coaching works one-to-one. So a coachee comes to a coach, they talk about what the goal is, what the coachee wants to achieve. There are various sessions that the coach has with the coachee. And then ultimately at the end of this phase, they check in with each other and see, has the coachee achieved this goal that they set out to do. However, coaching can also work on a team level. This can happen either in a setting where you would coach individuals in one-on-one scenarios on a specific challenge that they are all facing and that they are all involved with. And or you could have a team coaching session in the sense that you have more than one person sitting there with the coach, mirroring, talking things through, following up on impulses and so forth. The people in tech that I have gotten to know are driven and interested in improvement. When we look around, so many coders for years strive to have this high level, they strive for excellence, they push themselves really, really hard. And while that can also have downsides, obviously, nobody should put too much pressure on themselves. I see that there is a high level of enthusiasm, of drive, of wanting to progress, and also being very open to having that support and getting those impulses at the right point in time. Folks in tech love to challenge themselves. We see a lot of hackathons out there. We see a lot of competitions out there. We see it in the companies where you have this technical challenge, and then people are just so energetic, so energized to solve it, to tackle it, to make sure that they can get ahead with the knowledge that they gain throughout the process. So this is also something, again, this openness of, I want to be challenged. I want to get better. How can I do that? Contrary to all the stereotypes that are out there, folks in tech are emotionally intelligent. Let me tell you, the level of emotional intelligence that I have experienced in this field is very, very high. Even the people that you feel appear sort of withdrawn, maybe identify as introverts, even those are highly emotionally intelligent, maybe even more so because they've already reflected on themselves and they know that they are maybe more introverted than sort of the standard or typical person. So they have already thought a lot about themselves. And when we look towards nerd culture as well, people who at some point in their lives have been attributed with nerd have probably already given a lot of thought about their own emotional landscape. I experience this all the time in coaching, that folks are really, really full of self-reflection, that they want to reflect on themselves, and that they also have this very keen antenna for team dynamics, for what is going on with their colleagues. This cannot be underemphasized. This is something where if you have a team, and software development, if we look at it at its core, is so collaborative. You need to be able to work with other folks in a good way, in a good manner. And knowing about that, having those antennae for yourself, for other folks, for your team members, so crucial. And I see it manifested every single day. And I, as a coach, I come in and I provide the impulses to enable them to be even better in this. They have the package, they have all the equipment, all the things that they need. The only thing that I am doing is basically putting the sugar on top and helping them to see more clearly, to recognize opportunities, to talk to each other, to feedback each other, and to come together on this very, very highly or emotionally intelligent level. The one thing that is glaringly apparent is that technical teams, and most specifically developers, engineers, have a high intrinsic motivation. They love what they do. They excel at what they do because there's so much passion. Somebody comes in and says, look, do this, do that. It doesn't really work well. Specifically also because we want to have self-directing autonomous teams, right? We want to have teams that are able to move quickly and be agile. So you cannot go in there and have a very hierarchical structure of this, and that. People don't want to be code monkeys. But again, coaching can support really, really well here in this context, because it enables following up on this intrinsic motivation. It reduces levels of, I tell you what you do and I expect you to follow it. It enables collaboration, it enables team development, it enables personal development. So that's why it makes a lot of sense in these environments where we not only want to strive for it, but we also see that it works really well the way it does. And something that is definitely shouldn't be forgotten, professional skills. Oftentimes you hear them being described as soft skills. Nevertheless, I don't consider them soft skills because they are hard to learn in a way. I recently heard a suggestion like harder skills could also make sense. But in essence, if you only have somebody who's functionally really great, best coder you have ever seen in your life, best product owner, super methodological, best designer, knows the ins and outs and blah, blah. That's amazing. But we are in a collaborative environment. If there is not a high level of professional skills, then those folks won't work well together. And again, I do see that there is a very high level of collaboration, and there is a high willingness to acquire those professional skills, to work on those professional skills to get even better. And once that is in place, and you also build on it in individual coaching and in team coaching, the results that you see, the level of respect that people have with each other is nothing short of fabulous. But again, coaching helps a lot in this because it does not go in and it does not tell you, do it, I teach you, I expect you to. No, you go in and you set the impulses, you enable folks to reach their own conclusions and to then have a higher level of adoption of what they want to achieve because it is their own intrinsic motivation. So to summarize, what does coaching do? Coaching enables folks to reach their own insights. It enables them to activate their own resources. It helps them to develop their tool set, and it leads to an overall increase in motivation. Coaching relies heavily on coaching questions, so asking thought-provoking questions that provide impulses to the coachee. This is done a lot via the practices of leading and pacing. And then there are exercises that you do in the coaching setting. And there are also things like homework that the coachee takes away. In essence, no coaching methodology is perfect or right or the best one for that specific setting. But it all depends on what kind of tool set does the coach have, how open is the coachee, for example, to try things out, to experiment, and what works best for coach and coachee in their mutual setting. Now, on to the questions part. In preparation for this video, I had a couple of questions, so I wanted to make sure to address them already. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to post them in the comments. What I do get a lot as a question is, how can trust be reestablished when it is broken? So what if I'm in a scenario where I'm supposed to coach somebody and there is no trust? That is actually a really difficult thing, right? Usually coaches also can choose their coach and should choose their coach. So maybe if you're not the right person to provide the coaching, maybe somebody else in the organization is, and that works better. So it's not necessarily a breach of protocol if they go to somebody else to get their impulses. Maybe a breach in the hierarchy, but not a breach in the protocol. In any case, what I find is that for trust to have been broken, something must have happened. And then I find it imperative to seek the exchange, to talk about it even before going into a coaching setting. You cannot expect somebody to be open to coaching if there's no trust for the coach. This just won't work. So first of all, work on those issues and then go into the coaching session. How can folks in tech book coaching? So essentially, how can you find a good coach? There are portals, there are ways and means to sort of have an overview of who can provide coaching. A lot of the associations have directories as well. There are various associations in Germany, I think about 10 or 12 various associations for coaches who also give out, let's say, seals of approval that help you to determine a little bit better what kind of methodology the coach is following, which association they're linked with, they're connected to, and how they go about in their coaching. What I believe firmly in is leveraging the network. So look around, ask around, see if you have any people in your network that are coaches or no coaches. Oftentimes, maybe colleagues have already had a coach who specializes on coaching folks in tech. I do. So maybe that is something that where you can find a good recommendation, and this is usually also the best way. So network is really good, and then a lot of coaches also give trial sessions. I do that too. So if you are not yet sure about is the chemistry right and so forth, oftentimes coaches get together with potential coaches for half an hour, sometimes even up to an hour, just to see is the chemistry right? Can we work with each other? Am I asking the right question that feel comfortable for the coachee? And then going from then, you usually determine a contract for a specific number of sessions, or you say that you don't do this session by session. But in any case, there is usually, if the coach adheres to the standard practices, there's usually a process where you would first of all get to know one another. What are the usual methodologies? There are various ways and means you can coach folks. You can coach people on, let's say, or coach people via having them draw, visualizing things. Some coaches use methodologies that involve the body, so they do coaching by walking, or they do coaching in the form of sports. So you do sports together. This is also something that some people do. Some coaches just ask questions and sit down with the coachee. Then there are some things like visualizing within the room as well. So you have various visualization points and you leverage the room, at least in a time when, after Corona, we can all get back together in rooms again. So a lot of the methodologies come from therapy, but are not necessarily the same because we don't do therapy. A lot of methodologies come from communication techniques, from counseling, from consulting as well. So there are various forms and variants, and it's up to you to determine what you feel most comfortable with. I find that drawing is amazing. It visualizes things. I employ it a lot, and I have big fun in doing that for my coaches. Aren't engineers uncommunicative? Yeah, well, that stereotype. No, they're not. They're very communicative, specifically in one-to-one situations. I have found that people who have identified as the most introverted of all folks have opened up so well in one-on-one scenarios and have managed to describe their emotional landscape so well to me. So this is an absolute stereotype. Please do not be discouraged by it. Everybody is communicative. It's just a matter of finding the right coach, finding a good chemistry, having a good chemistry, and then having the right methodology in place and trying yourself out with it, being open for it, and making sure that you go into this with an open heart and open mind. But yeah, no, engineers are communicative, very much so. How did I discover coaching? Well, I think I've kind of already naturally, or I naturally did that for I, ever since thinking back to my childhood. I was always the person that people came up to and asked, "Hey, Franziska, can you help me through a difficult situation? I have this challenge, I have that challenge." So I always had this knack, and I've always had this openness to support other people in this. And in my career, when I started out, obviously I did not have coaching as a focus, but I was in an environment or environments where I had a lot to do with people, and I had a lot to do with people in various challenging situations, and whether that were colleagues or people in the community. So I supported and I enabled them as much as I could. And later on, I had my first functional leadership experience, and I did coach my functional reports through a lot of things, unknowingly that I was doing coaching. And then later on, when I looked into people leadership more and how I could develop myself there, I found that coaching actually matches my style and my expectations really well. That it gives me a great set of methodologies that I can leverage. And I started doing coaching qualifications, which has given me so much. And also in that course, I also did a mediation qualification, which is great. So I've learned a lot about myself in these seminars. I've learned a lot about other people and how I can support other people really well. Why do I like coaching people in tech? Ooh, that is a loaded question. What I do love about people in tech is that they are so driven, that they are people who usually are not satisfied with sort of the, oh, well, I'll just, whinge it and it'll be all right. People in tech are oftentimes in very volatile environments where we have advancements so often and so happening so quickly that you consistently need to adapt. So you need to, in a way, if you work in tech, whether you are a coder or not, you essentially need to consistently self-manage yourself on change. And that takes a lot of emotional intelligence, but also a lot of courage and a lot of openness. I've consistently seen that for folks in tech. And what is even on top of that is that they support each other so well, in the sense of how can I enable you to get better? Can I pair program with you? Can I do a code review for you? Can I outline the possibilities for you? Are there any jobs that I can refer to you? In teams, beyond organizations, in communities, I've seen such high levels of support, specifically also for people that you would see as being coming from marginalized communities and backgrounds. So this is something that in turn gives me a lot, and also coaching people in tech gives me a lot. I always say to my coaches, it's not a one-way street. I get a lot back. When I see that somebody has reached an objective, they are happy, they have changed something for the better. I see this manifested in the team, for example. I get so much out of it. That is a huge satisfaction for me at the end of the day, and I do so much enjoy it. So this is what motivates me every single time, and this is why I also like to, let's say, take on more challenging scenarios, because I feel like it gives me a lot in return.